Okay.
We're going.
We're
It's
going.
happening.
We're
People
live.
can hear me.
People
We've
can
been
hear
holding
you.
the house, waiting for people to. I'm just kidding. We haven't. I welcome to a something installment of Pilobolus Origins. I'm Matt Kent, my partner Renee Jaworski, who's
Hello.
busy doing
Making things
things
happen.
on the screen, and we're the co-artistic directors of Pilobolus, and we're working out our double thing. Oh, that's so much better.
Yeah.
I was having like a freak out. I was seeing two of me. We've done a couple of these talks. They've always had a different emphasis or theme or something that we've been leaning into. The last one that we did was focusing on Washington Depot. Why did we move here? And because of that, we also got in touch with the incomparable Martha Clark so that we could have a chat. It was so much fun to have another person. And after that happened, we had another idea, which is to do a different kind of beginning story. And I want to start that beginning story, Renee, by starting the way we often start things now, which is with our land acknowledgement, which is to say that we recognize that Washington Depot, where Pilobolus lives and creates and performs, where our heart and draws inspiration from the landscape around us, was the traditional home of the Wiatnak and Putatuk people, which are now known collectively as the Scotticoke. And we think that there's a long history that's brought all of us here, and understanding each other despite our differences is a way forward and a way for us to heal and to collaborate, which is what we're all about. So that brings me to thinking about those origins. I've been thinking a lot about the difficulty in unpacking a causal chain that brings you to a moment that seems like it's the beginning. So we started our first one making the joke, 4 jocks walk into a dance class and out pops Pilobolus. It's not that simple. So we've had this conversation before, right, Renee, but we've never had the opportunity to kind of have a little window back in time before the beginning of Pilobolus. What led up to the conditions that allowed this company, who's now been celebrating our 50th anniversary, to happen? And so we have a special guest with us. One of the founders of Pilobolus, Jonathan Wolken, and who passed away, his sister is here to join us. So she's just like hanging out in the waiting room. So I'm going to go ahead and invite Anne to join us, and we've got some family photos and all kinds of cool stuff. So here we go.
And just a little teaser. This is our first special guest. There'll be more.
Yes, there's more. There's someone else.
Yeah, waiting in the
There's
wings.
someone else in Jonathan's family waiting to speak with us. And here we are. Let me introduce you to all of our Facebook fans. This is Anne Wolken, who I've had the opportunity to already have some really great conversations. So Anne Wolken, who's an artist in her own right. This is your work behind you over your shoulders, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, I didn't have a show. I mean, I didn't know we were going to do this exactly.
I know. That's all right. They look great. So, Anne, we want to go back in time to sort of before Pilobolus was a gleam in any of the artistic director's eyes, to talk about your brother, Jonathan Wolken, who really was this force behind keeping this company, creating this company and keeping it moving. Someone who Renee and I have looked up to as a mentor, and who we created lots of dances with. And we're proud that we're able to kind of carry on this vision that he had. So I'm gonna kind of like focus over here at everything so I can pull up some stuff.
So, and you were generous enough to send us some photos from even before Jonathan was born.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. So.
Okay.
So tell us about this photo.
This photo was the quote unquote family photo. Recently, this print was sent to me by my cousin Anita, but I looked at it and Jonathan looked at it when we were at our grandmother's, which was a lot. And this photo, as best I can tell, it dates around 1907. And this is my father's family before he was born in 1917.
So this is your grandfather and grandmother.
Yeah, my father's mother and father.
And your great uncles and aunts, or great.
They're not great. No, they're just my simply.
Oh.
My father had a big spread in his family, so his sister was pregnant when his mother was pregnant with him.
Oh.
So she's only 29 in this photo, approximately, and so you know they just started young and kept on going. And so my father was probably born, well, if this is true, he was born 10 years later.
So these are your aunts.
Yes.
And this, there he is.
That's our dad. My brother and our dad, J.J. Wolken. And this,
And what, I mean, it's pretty clear what he did, but will you say what your father did?
Yes, he's one of the first biophysicists around, and he saw himself as an artist of sorts because he felt that what he did was kind of like art. He had a lab and he built machines and he looked at single-celled animals. And one of his most classic works is called Euglena, and that's a single-cell animal in the dark, and it turns into a plant in light.
Oh, interesting.
Wait, what? Okay, that's crazy.
And that's him looking at one of his slides in this. But he also built electron microscopes and had an art show of like blow-ups from the electron microscope.
Oh, so taking photos of whatever he saw.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
and that's in his lab with his associate. I mean, well, his employee, I guess you could say. I mean, he had nonprofit, so whatever he paid anybody, he had to raise himself by talking to like the Lions Club, pretty much the way you would fundraise. And but it was
we're looking at each other like that, and because we're like, so that's where he learned how to do it, because he did that for Pilobolus.
Yeah, he was.
He wore many hats.
He wasn't just the artistic director. He wrote all the grants and raised money and did everything that he could to keep this company moving forward.
This is a great photo. Really, it's one of my favorites because my dad loved having Gus and his, like, I guess you could say it was like a dance company, the people that worked in the lab and that he raised money for. And this here was his very first lab. And it was an Ioneer Hospital in Pittsburgh in the basement. And so I might as well tell you right now that I called my brother Buster. So there's no other way. It's always Buster and Ann when we were kids.
Why did you call him Buster?
Because my dad called him Buster.
And why did your dad call him Buster?
And he probably met somebody, you know, at Woods Hole or something that he liked the name Buster.
Oh, okay.
He decided to call my brother Buster.
See, I always thought that the Buster could come from like Buster Keaton, like somebody that takes a bus.
That's possible, but it was always short for bus, so he'd say bus or something like that. So that was his nickname. But we would go into this, really smelly basement where they were making food for the hospital, my brother and I. And it was really exotic because it smelled so much like hospital food. And those bricks were yellow. You remember the yellow hospital brick? Oh, yeah. And so this was essentially a remodeled kitchen in a hospital. And and I loved it. They wore lab coats and they had beakers, and the beakers had they were green for Euglena, and then they would shake them and then they'd put them in the dark and they would lose all their greenness.
Right. It was like a magic show.
Like photosynthesis. And then he raised fruit flies. Those were scary, they multiplied so fast. and he would study the compound eyes of fruit flies.
So you and your brother, you and Jonathan spent a lot of time in the lab with him?
Well, Jonathan later worked there, but he, my dad, I mean, we were too little. I mean, we're talking, he was 4 and I was 6. So we would just go and like pick him up, something like that. But I mean, you really didn't want like 4 and 6-year-olds like underfoot here and all this
Running around, yeah.
And I have to interrupt because, you know, I wanted to say one of the things that drew us to doing this now is that we're going to be performing in Pittsburgh, and all of this is in Pittsburgh.
It is in Pittsburgh. And Pioneer Hospital is probably still there. It was part of Pitt, and the University of Pittsburgh is where my dad essentially, he worked as an associate professor at the University of Pittsburgh.
So here we have, look at this.
Okay, bring it up close so you can see. This is a really little photo. Yeah, there you go. That's Buster there, and me at a dance recital, and that's our neighbor, David Charleston.
Oh, okay. So the littlest person in this photo is Jonathan.
Yes.
You're in the middle, and then the taller.
It's just a neighbor. Yeah, it's a little out of focus, but yeah.
The very dapper bow tie. So we have, oh God, and it's just, I can already.
Yeah, he still looks like that, right? In your mind's eye. Yeah, this is us when we were, we were so close. I really love these pictures because I'm holding his hand. I was like trying to help him because our mother was sick and we were alone in the world. Yeah, we were really hard up.
Yeah.
So because your mom passed away when he was 4 and you were 6, is that right?
That's right. He was 4 years old.
Oh.
So this is around then, right? Probably before she died.
Wow. So pretty. And here you are.
And this is in Woods Hole, Massachusetts. Now, my dad loved doing, he worked at the biological lab there in Woods Hole, which is really, awesome place. And, studied these creatures in the ocean. And and this is Jonathan and I when we were really little too.
Is this in Pittsburgh? This is like your place?
No, this here is in Cambridge, Mass, at Harvard, I think.
What was your place in Pittsburgh like? Because I know.
Well, we had 2 houses. There were 3 houses in Pittsburgh of note. Oh, this is him. This is the cutest picture. This is when he was an infant, Jonathan.
See, I meant to have these in order, but somehow I messed up.
Right, well,
backwards in time.
But back to, okay, so you said that you lived in 3 different houses in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, we lived in 3 different houses. I mean, really lived there. The first house was on Negley Avenue, and it was a row house. It was a party wall house. It was very small. You're going too fast, Mark.
I know, because there's so many things.
But then we moved later, but this time that Jonathan and I were just together like this was really previous to him, my dad remarrying. Now,
and then when he remarried, you moved to a
this here is when he remarried and we were on a boat.
Oh, okay. He was married on a boat?
No, but my stepmother was in this picture. That's how I know he remarried.
Ah, I see.
Got you. I see.
So this was when I was 9 and my brother, Jonathan, was 7. Wow. He was really, really cute, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Very cute. So is that your father?
No, this is just a passenger on the boat. Okay. My father stayed in Naples, Italy to work in the lab there.
Ah. Okay.
So, before I go on, I want to stop.
You want to go back?
Yeah, I'm going to bring you up for just a minute, Anne, because we're coming to Pittsburgh, and I was talking to a friend today about Pittsburgh being this, it's a lot of inclines,
Mhm.
Like I wanted it. What was it like? What was the town like then?
Oh,
You know what I
Pittsburgh
mean?
was great. Pittsburgh was great then. I could walk. Oh, because let me tell you about the third house. The third house was my grandmother's house, and that was on the bluff near Fifth Avenue High School, which is torn down now, but it was kind of near the Hill District, near downtown, but it was really like maybe 3 blocks from the river, from maybe the Allegheny River.
And
I'm not sure about the river. There's 3 rivers in Pittsburgh: the Ohio, the Monongahela, and the Allegheny. So I better look. I mean, I haven't been to Pittsburgh in a while, but the rivers in Pittsburgh, and many, many bridges, and lots of hills. But we never lived on any hill.
But did Jonathan ride his bicycle
Yes.
up? Because I feel like that's where maybe
his
there was like a little, you know what I mean? Like,
his love for speed.
yeah, right. And physical effort.
And physical
like,
effort, yeah.
that kind of thing that you do, it takes almost like a whole, you know, like Schopenhauer said, like, at the end of your life, you can look back and see this whole arc. It's like a symphony. Something happens and it develops. When you're in the middle of it, it doesn't feel like that. But you look back on something as simple as like where you rode your bike and you think maybe that made.
Well, that's right. He got a 10-speed bike, and he rode all over. I could walk to my grandmother's house from where we lived, which I did. You could take a streetcar to my grandmother or anywhere in Pittsburgh, which I did. When Jonathan was in high school, he got a 10-speed bike, and he rode everywhere in Pittsburgh, to Oakland, where the University of Pittsburgh is, Carnegie Mellon, where my dad later worked. Those are the major schools, you know, in Pittsburgh, and they're in Oakland, which was really close to where we lived.
Did you ever, when Jonathan was young, did he ever talk about, or did you ever get a sense of what he would do when he got older? Did he have a
No.
No.
He was really worried about it, actually.
Yeah.
He was worried about it, and it was almost like he had this breakthrough when he was when he got indefinitely suspended from Dartmouth. And my dad was very upset, and he had to go to Dartmouth. My dad, the professor, who you've sort of seen. So he had friends there in the science, and I think they arranged for him to take this dance class, kind of like rehab kind of idea. And that's how he really kind of regrouped, I guess you could say. And he met Robbie and now Moses. Everybody's names are different, but they, at least, you know, I don't know the other people, but they had this kind of shared energy, let's say. And then it just ignited, like something that was waiting, like a butterfly in that state. But that's what happened. He never looked back.
Yeah.
But even before that, I mean, there was a lot going on. I mean, obviously, the Vietnam War, he was going to be drafted, so he had to protest the war. I mean, things came up that really he felt passionate about.
Yeah, and when he was passionate, he was all in, right?
Oh, never look back. That was
he like that when he was a baby boy too. Like when he was he that passionate about everything that he?
No, not at all. Not at all. No. Oh, I love that picture.
The lighting is great.
But take the other one back. I forgot to tell you what the other one was. That's a picture when Jonathan was. This is in 1985 when Jonathan was catering my wedding.
Oh, he catered your wedding. He loved to cook.
He did. See the big bowls of food? He loved making large feasts.
Mm-hmm.
If you came into the company as a dancer and you didn't know anything about cooking at all, you were going to have a hard time understanding what he wanted you to do.
Yeah, because a lot of his metaphors were about cooking. A lot of, quite a bit, actually.
But anyway, you can keep going. But
Not beautiful.
Yeah.
And then this happened.
Then this is a photo from the original piece, Pilobolus.
but I want to say that for sure, before the breakthrough of the suspension, truly he was a quiet person.
Really?
Yes, he lay on his bed. He was a very reader, and he played the banjo.
Yeah.
And he was in the theater. I mean, he liked audiences, but nothing like, I mean, the theater, the dance, folk dancing, the bicycle, American Friends Service Committee, protests against the war, all those things was like we were talking about before, like sort of the era.
Uh-huh.
Era. But then there was something that happened in the magic of dance.
Yeah. Interesting.
So Pittsburgh, April 9th. April 9th.
April
April
9th.
9th. Yeah, my son's birthday.
Yep.
I can't forget that.
Oh, I'm so excited you're doing this before Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we went to Falk Elementary School on the hill right below where the Pittsburgh Panthers played. And we went to Peabody High School. And then I went to Smith and Dartmouth,
So I don't have this photo, but you were close. I mean, did you see the company in its early phases? Were you?
Yes, I went to Loch Linden Farm, and I saw them in their their heyday, really, when they were making yogurt, soy burgers, dancing, and then Jonathan always like cultivating PR, media, etc.
Wow.
It was so beautiful there, I couldn't handle it.
So did you, and like, was it a surprise when it kept going and kind of?
Yes. I mean, here I am, his big sister. I think I know everything about him. I'm his protector. I'm his older sister. And then all of a sudden this happens, and he,
And it continued to happen.
he didn't even know himself, really. How can you envision how life will unfold? You don't know.
Yeah.
But
It's
I did feel though that I didn't get to this, and is our time up? I do feel that we're missing something. So I have to say this.
okay.
There was a tremendous void, a tremendous loss that my brother and I felt. It was huge. And you can't really, it's like life over. It was a total devastating loss. And so that never went away. And so that, in a way, like if you're a Jungian, and believe in the shadow, it was always there, and it fueled the energy of the passion of this dance company.
Mm-hmm.
It was this tremendous loss, and you can't even talk about it. You can't even wrap your mind around it, but it exists in some primitive way inside of you. And that energy, along with everything else, I think, it just lit.
Mm-hmm.
He did, it did feel like Jonathan he latched onto something. It was like he found his thing, and that was it. He just latched on.
Dog in the bone.
And I did feel like it was, just knowing him personally, that it felt like his whole world. And yet he didn't seem like we were talking today, Renee and I, about who was of the founders of Pilobolus, like who considered themselves an artist and not. And Jonathan always felt and had said things to us. It's different. All of the people that we think of as the original six of Pilobolus are I think they have a different take on. They're different people. I mean, that's what's so interesting about these origin things for us, because any origin story in Pilobolus, whether it's about a piece or about the company, has all of these different perspectives, because it is in its nature this kind of collective. And he just seemed like someone who was infinitely curious and wanted to approach the whole world like a science, like an experiment. Like the whole world was a laboratory just set here for him to play with. And
that's exactly right. I agree with that.
It's so.
I think that's true. And since you're going to Pittsburgh, I'll send you the sites you should definitely hit.
Yeah,
Okay,
we could do it.
that
Could be
would be
like going
great.
to Dublin and doing the Bloom Walk.
Yeah.
We could do like
Do the Jonathan
the
Wolken
Wolken Walk, but it'll be
Wolken
called
walk. The Wolken.
Yeah, we've got to come up with a better pun, because he loved puns. Did he love puns when he was little? Because he always had
I did love the pun.
he loved to turn a phrase in the studio, always.
No, well, like I said, it was no.
Something really opened up in him.
Well, you have to see that, again, besides the loss, he couldn't see very well.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, again, would turn someone inward.
Yeah.
And possibly, but he was always really into reading, I will say that.
Yeah.
But I'll let you go. I don't know what to do, but we could talk another time.
I know we should keep
Absolutely.
talking and collecting this information that in the context of things that you like I said, like when you're in the middle of it, you don't know. And when I met Jonathan, I mean, I thought he would be there forever. Like he was such a force. And it's a loss that we still feel it. And I'm sure that you must too. And yet there's this other thing that's like going on that we feel like he's always
present. Right. No, I feel that actually as I age and see, he's more present in me, internalized in me, that I feel like I am, because I used to talk to him all the time and I can just hear myself talking to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I think that is a perfect
segue
to end on. And I'm gonna switch it up, Renee, and I'm gonna play something that's not. We were gonna play our Pilobolus Origins, the Pilobolus, the piece, the original piece, the company named after this piece, which is named after a fungus that your dad was looking at in the laboratory, so it just kind of connects everything together. We've played it before on these origin talks, and I found something that's a little bit shorter because I want to get our next guest to come on. So we're going to say goodbye, and we're going to leave you with something that I think is a perfect thing to show right now. Anne, thank you so much for your time. I feel like we could just keep talking forever, and we should definitely do this again. And I thank you again.
Okay, sure.
Okay, let me see how many things I can do at once here. No, I mean, I would think you could help, but I don't know what to ask you to do.
Well.
All right, here I'm back. All right, thank you, Anne. Talk to you soon. Okay, so here's my secret for you. I found this.
It's a great video. I'm so glad you found this.
It's the sheriff section.
It's the sheriff section called Molly is Not Dead. And there's Jonathan in the orange trio back there in the center, the tallest one. Moses in front and Robbie behind him, and then Allison Chase in front, driving them all wild.
Okay, and now, very Pilobolus. Sneak.
That is what we call a smash cut right there. This is a great piece. Okay. This is.
Tell you what, I can tell you want to bring her on. I'll save the rest of this.
Okay.
We'll just fade it. There's a few more seconds, but I think it might be nice to save a little bit. So here we go. Joanne, hello. We now would like to introduce. Aha! There you are.
There she is.
Thank you so much for waiting by. And oh gosh, I'm doing it again. I'm listening to myself twice.
Yeah.
And joining us, Joanne. This is Joanne Torti, who is the executive director of ASAP here in our town, which is well, I should let you explain. You're here. You should explain it yourself. And also was Jonathan's wife, is his widow. And
for how many years?
Knows lots of stuff.
Were you married to Jonathan?
We were together for 20 years. Yeah.
Wow. I'm going to do 20 this summer. That'll be 20 for me. I mean, of married life.
Right. Think about that, Matt. Think of how
I am.
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many lifetimes we live in one lifetime.
Yeah. I understand that.
Right.
Yeah.
So ASAP.
Yeah.
So,
talk about ASAP.
So, well, Jonathan and I met in Maine at a workshop that I took from him. And how I ended up there was that I had studios in Maine, and he called and asked if he could use them for this workshop. And because they were in a remote place, he wanted something more central, and ended up finding a town hall kind of place. And he wanted me to come and join the class. And there it was.
That's how you met.
That's how we met. And
that was in 92.
92. And
I took his workshop in 95.
right.
That was
and
when I was he was already taken, I guess, at that point. So what was I going to do?
I remember you were in that workshop in 95. Yeah. But he changed my life. He was an amazing teacher. And I remember when everyone sat down in the circle at the beginning of the week, and he said, "This is not a therapy session." And actually, it was a therapy session.
I was going to say, that's him saying, this is a therapy session. If I know Jonathan, that's exactly, he would always say the exact opposite of what he wanted you to believe.
So it's like he knew how to get the raw out of, the rawest thing from people. Like you just poured yourself out in that in his classes, and everyone was forever changed. And
yeah, he would always say, leave it all in the room.
bring it all.
Bring it all and leave it all. Yeah.
Bring it all in. Yeah.
So you met in 92.
Yeah.
And did you start dating right away? Like, what was that? How did
Pretty
that?
much. I think we just fell in love, and it
Mm.
was really, it was crazy for both of us. And I ended up moving to Connecticut. He actually moved to Maine for a little while,
Oh, really?
tested it out,
Mhm.
and Allison actually tried to get him to move to Maine full
Oh, I'm
time.
sure.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But
Wouldn't that have been interesting? You'd be doing a different Origins talk. Yeah.
Yeah, and she lives there now. But we decided, let's do Connecticut. And I moved to Connecticut. And when I moved here, he asked me if I would go to this meeting to learn about an after school arts program that a local foundation, the Connecticut Community Foundation, wanted to start. And so I went, and that's really where ASAP was born. And we started as an after school arts program, but then we quickly morphed into an educational arts infused organization where we're in schools serving, thousands of kids every year throughout the state.
It's
So
an
that-
amazing organization that you run.
Thank you. And you've been part of it from the beginning. So
Yeah. What year did ASAP start?
we started in 99.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And
And we
Pilobolus.
presented Pilobolus the next January, which was in 2000. So yeah. And now we're presenting you again on May 7th at the Palace. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. So we get to go to Jonathan's hometown in April, and then we get to perform with you and that organization that he sort of asked you to come to this benign meeting, right? And then suddenly you're running an organization.
I know. Yeah.
But I want to point out something though. This isn't just a Pilobolus show that we're doing. It's unlike any Pilobolus show that happens anywhere else on our tour, because we're performing with kids who
Right.
Emily's been working with, and it's something we've done before, and it's one of our favorite things. And I think it's something people don't Joanne, we've had, maybe we got this from Jonathan partly too, or maybe it's just what aligns us, that we kind of don't feel like there's the art that you do on stage and then there's an outreach. It's like all the same sort of to us. And it just seems like a natural, like, if these guys at Dartmouth can dance, then so these kids in Waterbury can dance. What's the difference? It all makes sense to us. So it's a really special thing. And if you're anywhere nearby and you want to, you get to see Pilobolus, you get to see these young emerging artists or whatever they're going to be with their life, kind of, that they've explored and done that same thing that you were talking about, the same experience with Jonathan. It's like there's always this sort of connection of like trying to get people to show themselves a little bit and do it through movement. Because you and I had a conversation, you said something that I think is so true, which is movement doesn't lie. Like you can't
hide behind your movement.
That's what you said.
Yeah, you can't. And I remember, I don't know, there were conversations that would come up in the workshops with Jonathan. And it was just, the group up, group down, where it's an interesting thing because you're giving people the opportunity to study you in a sense. And it's kind of scary to just put yourself out there and let people watch you.
Yeah, and especially in a class that you're being pushed to be so raw, as Jonathan was doing. And the group up, group down, we call it platooning. It's when one group is up performing or experimenting, and another group is sitting and watching the experimentation. So if you've ever taken a class with us, you know what we're talking about. And if you haven't, now you sort of know. And it is, it's an exciting experience to at the same time be so vulnerable, but have these kind of like eyes on you. It's like a crash course in performance.
Yeah. Well, but Jonathan taught all kinds of people from all walks of life. I mean, he taught at the Wharton Business School.
Yeah.
It wasn't that he was teaching dance.
Mm-hmm.
He was really teaching life. Like
Yeah.
everything you learned in those workshops, you could carry into your life, in
Mm-hmm.
your relationships. And this whole I mean, he has the words, the movements, like the reciprocals, right? Coupling, like all these things, all these terms that he brought up in the workshop. It's really about how we move through our life and
Mm-hmm.
how we engage. And, you know, it's just, it's so poignant. And I have so many letters from all the people that he taught
Yeah.
that we're so grateful.
We've been, as you know, we're moving our office soon, and we've been kind of digging through and finding letters to funders and donors and things that Jonathan would write. And he, the way he wrote was, I mean, everybody was a friend, first of all. Like there was nobody who wasn't a friend. And the way that he wrote was like he was penning a letter to a very dear friend that he wanted to like.
Right, you're like
bring up to
quoting
date.
Zappa
Yeah.
to like somebody you're asking at a foundation. I mean, he had a way. He had a way.
And it was it's fascinating to read all of his letters. And
Well, he loved words.
Yeah.
Loved words. He loved playing with words. He loved the sound of words. He just loved words, and he just was a voracious reader. And
Oh yeah, I mean, not just Jonathan, everyone. I mean, when the Pilobolus dancers finished our season at the Joyce, when Renee and I would finish, the directors would give you books, and I'm so I look back on that. It was such an interesting way to mentor, because it wasn't like shoving something down here, but they picked these things because they were for me. Like I was like, oh, you thought about this. This is like
curated.
And we got so many books from you, Joanne and Jonathan and Robbie and everybody. But I wanted to jump back, since you have this perspective before we run out of time.
Yeah.
I'm really interested, like, do you think he considered himself an artist?
I think he was more like an explorer.
Uh-huh.
That's what he was. He loved to explore. He loved to investigate. It was a lab for him, everything. And not just movement. It wasn't about movement, really. It was about what's interesting enough to talk about, to explore, to do whatever. He was so fascinated with so many different things, and he would turn things on so many different sides. How can we turn it this way or that way, or just all the different angles of looking at something. And, he had such patience for that. And I don't know how he accomplished so much, because he read, he built furniture, he loved, like, music was his first love.
Uh-huh.
So much music, loved to cook, loved to learn about recipes. And, when Pilobolus created a piece, they did a whole research project. I don't know if you remember Rejoice.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And it was based on Finnegan's Wake, James Joyce. Well, they studied for months during that whole process. They read, he and Robbie read Finnegan's Wake, and, they just really delved into everything.
And what was it like when he was making a piece at home? What was it like when he was making a piece at home? Like,
oh, he listened to so much music.
Yeah.
He would put on his headphones and sit in his cross-legged way on the floor, right? Yeah. And listen to music, and he would always be making notes. And
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, it was in his blood, it was in his body, it was his ethos.
So I have a question for you that Renee and I were talking about, because it's first I'm going to give you a story about myself. See if there's a comparison. So one day I'm on the phone with Renee. I'm at my house. She's at her house. I don't even remember what project it was, but we're working on some project very recently.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just getting like, and I'm getting like that. And I said, I don't know, Renee. I don't know if I can do this. I'm just getting up. And she goes, oh, you always have to get riled up before you can really go to work on something. And she said it in a way that only a longtime partner who goes like, don't kick yourself. This is what you do. You always do this. And it was this moment of me. First of all, it's that Renee knows that about me. And secondly, it's that I apparently didn't know that about me. Or I had to have it told to me and remind me that like that's the way I do things. When I used to brew beer, which Jonathan loved, I would keep a beer journal. And I did this, I did this, I did this. And then Emily, our education director, who I'm lucky enough to be married to and you've worked with so much, she would write in the margins, this is where Matt freaked out that it wasn't going to work because of sanitation, but it worked out fine. So the next time I'm following the recipe, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess. So my question is does that bring up anything to you as two humans who were cohabitating together? Like, were there things that you could say, like Jonathan, and you knew about his creative process that maybe he didn't even know himself or needed to be told?
Oh, wow. That's a full answer that. I mean, really, I think Jonathan, his whole creative process, he loved getting people's opinions.
Uh-huh.
He loved it. Like, come in the studio and tell me what you think of this. And I remember him asking Robbie, what do you think of that? What do you think of this music? Like, I mean, I know he had clear ideas and he was driven in a certain way, but he was also very open-minded. And he really did want people's opinions. And I think the other part of it is that he wanted it to be successful, whatever he made. He wanted it to be successful. And he always said, well, if enough people like it, it's going to be good.
Mhm.
Right.
He would like
That's the critical mass. Like, if enough people like it, then it's good.
Yeah.
You know?
He would bring, I remember when we were making work, he would bring people in at such an early stage
Yeah.
to watch what we were doing,
Yeah.
to see what they laughed at, to see what they cringed at, to see what they were like interested in, what drew them. So yeah, and it was lots of people. You're right. There were lots of people who came through our rehearsal process when we were making work. That's kind of unlike, it's what we do as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we probably
got you and me.
Yeah. It's where we got the impulse from, because it is so important to hear like what is interesting about this.
Oh, I don't care who you are,
like,
what age you are, what your background. If you're near me and I'm working on something, I'm like, do you think like it'd be interesting to have people, like I'll have some thought about it, that if you're near me, I'm going to ask you about it. And I think I have these sort of, Jonathan and I were very different people, but we had these strange parallels in some ways. And one of them, like even when Anne was saying that he got in trouble for calling a philosophy teacher a fraud, I'm like, that sounds like something that would have come out of my life. Like that, we sort of could overlap on that. And I think he was an enthusiast, which I have been called an enthusiast.
Oh,
and,
yes, definitely.
But
also, one thing about Jonathan is that he could let go. I mean, that was part of the process of creating. It's like, don't hold on to things. Don't be so precious about things. You got to let go, let go, let go. And I think he was telling himself that, like that, the hardship that he went through as a child and losing his mother at such a young age. I mean, I can't imagine that, I was there when he was dying, and it was still heartbreaking for him, even
Yeah.
those last moments of his life. And it was, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
so I think a lot of course, what Anne was saying is like he was processing this huge loss through everything he did too. Yeah.
And so one thing I've always wanted to ask you, and I just didn't, because I didn't know that Jonathan was sick for a long time while he was sick. And I think he probably, he told Renee before me, and I think he told, there was like a layer of, I guess what I'm trying to say, let me back up. To be someone who in the theater and in the studio was so just, here's everything. Here's all my cards. There was also still this part of him that felt close to his chest. He seemed both private,
Very
and,
of it. Yeah.
but at the same time would tell you exactly
Very
what he
open.
thought. That
Yeah.
completely open. He could be very supportive, and he was also very disruptive. He was a man to me filled with these contradictions that were really extreme, and that is another thing that I relate to personally.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel very connected to him because because when I took that workshop, this story, Joanne, like he said to me, I saw him in a diner on like a Wednesday. It was a Monday through Friday. And he said, come in, we're having breakfast. Do you think you could ever see yourself doing something like this? And I was like, no, what? And I was so naive that I didn't even realize that he was like, maybe you should come to an audition, And so I feel this kind of connection to that, like wondering, like not really, like it's not like dance. That's what I'm going to do. It was just sort of this other, it just found me kind of. He says in the video that we didn't show, he says like, it was a little nugget and then it just took over my whole life.
Yeah.
Which you can find. We have that on YouTube, and
Yeah.
I think Raya will put a link in there. But can you talk a little bit about that? Was it crazy at home? Like, people always ask Emily, like, was it just a party all the time? And she's like, are you kidding me?
No, he was so serious at home. I mean, the happiest place for him was in the studio. He loved being in the studio. Even when he was so sick, he just like wanted to be in the studio creating and working with the dancers. He missed the dancers. He missed that. When he was home, I think, especially in the last years of his life, he conserved all his energy for the studio. And so when he came home, this was recuperation time. And, but before that, I mean, that's what gave him life and energy, I think. He came alive in the studio. I mean, it was his beautiful place where he could do what he loved, so
Great world.
at home he was serious and I don't know.
Yeah.
He was more quiet, like Anne would say.
Yeah.
And there he is not serious.
There he is not so serious. It's like when people, it's so interesting to me too, because the way that I relate to Jonathan is when I'm on stage, I am a much more gregarious and open and extroverted person than when I am in my real life. So to hear all of that about him, I completely relate. Like I would much rather curl up with a book at home than do anything outside of my home. But then when you see me on stage, it's like a completely different person. Or when I'm in the studio, I'm a completely, I'm just in a different mindset. So it's.
When you act, gosh, see, I am doing too many things. So we're going to show that in a minute, the megawatt.
The megawatt stuff.
But Renee is like, you do put on another
persona.
Yeah, not just on stage. I mean, in anything that she needs to do. Like I could just be like, what if you acted like you were this person? you're an actor playing this person, and then she'll just do the
Okay,
thing.
got it.
Or she'll be like, sometimes you'll be like, but I need okay.
I need some.
Do I have a prop?
I need
like
to
now
dress
I'm
the
good.
part
Yeah,
and-
you'll need your reading glasses if you're
Right,
trying to do a certain
exactly.
And it's like you're almost what I think relates to about what you're saying about Jonathan is like it's sort of it's like this playful.
Yeah,
It's like the world's just here for us to
play with.
with and
And
to
to-
see what happens.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna
And to create, like, I think that, like, when he was in the studio, he was creating, like,
Yeah.
Right, so
something
now-
that was different than what is just in everyday life. He's
Now's the
creating
time.
fantasy and worlds and
like this world.
like this world, which is kind of a dystopic world, in Megawatt.
And
but-
these are the performers performing it on the road now, doing Megawatt that we've dedicated this whole season to Jonathan. But I just wanted you to like, who else would get people to do that?
This kind of stuff.
I-
With
This
that
is not-
amount of passion and energy and
Look at Quincy's face.
yeah.
And the thing is, what I love too is in these you can see Hannah back there also. I mean, here are these front and center, but everybody's experiencing it, you know?
Yeah.
It's so great.
I think
This is
I
not the
mean,
bullshit.
This is not the bullshit. And I do think that Megawatt was one of Jonathan's favorite creations.
Oh, he had a ball. I remember when he did it.
Yeah.
I remember him working on it, making it. I mean, we were on vacation when he was working on it.
Of course.
Yeah. And I remember it was, it's great.
Yeah, he would have a ball in the studio,
Oh, God.
rocking to the music.
Oh,
Sure, that was a
I remember you
Good
doing
ball.
that, Renee.
yeah. Yeah, that was my role. That flipping the guy in the horizontal position right there. That was me.
Maybe. I know.
Yeah. So it's funny that you say that he used to listen to music on his headphones because I always imagined him like cranking it, like blasting the speakers out.
Subjecting all,
subjecting
all others
everybody
like
to
that.
it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we're gonna get to see Megawatt at the Palace.
Yeah, yeah, you will.
Those performers right there. We're really excited about it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gonna be great. So
May 7th.
May
May
7th?
7th, 2 and 7 p.m.
Yeah. And we want to thank Raya because they are putting all the links in to our Facebook, which we can't see. So I'm
And-
just trusting it because they're younger than us. So I think it's all going to be fine.
I also want to ask Raya. I don't know if has anybody asked any questions for any of us.
There was one question earlier, and it was if Jonathan would have predicted that what he started would still be going 50 years later.
Would Jonathan have predicted that what he started would still be going 50 years later?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, he didn't like dance. It was so funny to think that. I mean, he did folk dancing. He really loved folk dancing, but it was like he didn't think Pilobolus's dance, I guess.
That may be true, but I'm going to say, I think, and I'm going to believe, maybe I'm just choosing to believe this, because of what we're doing now.
Yeah.
I think he would. And I think I don't know if predicted is the right word. It's like, I think he would have projected Pilobolus into infinity and beyond kind of a thing, Like, I just think this force, I'm not sure. There were certainly times when he could have quit, right? When we went through rough times, Pilobolus.
I mean, he would never quit. No.
Well, that's
He loved Pilobolus. Absolutely loved Pilobolus. Never quit.
I think I think that the way that he would think of Pilobolus going on might not look like what we're doing now, but just the fact that he planted his little spores in many ways through the workshops and like watched them kind of like explode and create things beyond him is another way of it going on beyond him and beyond.
Well, I
years.
can tell you this. I think he would be so happy to know that you two are leading the way now. And I can feel that.
Well, that's great. Thank you for the endorsement. We feel honored to be able to keep doing it. And I mentioned to you before, and I sent this to you, Joanne, when Jonathan passed, that this song, which is so cheesy that I know, but but now's the time for it.
Oh yeah.
This Jackson Browne song, Into a Dancer, or For a Dancer,
Uh-huh.
and it ends by saying, okay, how far back do I go? I guess, okay. It ends by saying, perhaps a better world is drawing near, and just as easily it could all disappear, along with whatever meaning you might have found. But don't let the uncertainty turn you round. Go on and make a joyful sound. Into a dancer you have grown, from a seed somebody else has thrown. Go ahead and throw some seeds of your own. And somewhere between the time you arrive and the time you go, may lie a reason you were alive, but you'll never know.
Nice.
When I think about those causal chains and what happens in my life, and I look back, and it's just like, we just want to keep this positive thing like going and going and going. I think it's time for, I think we should kind of wrap things up.
Yep.
I want to say so much love to you and Anne for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.
And
It was lovely.
Joanne, we'll keep doing, we'll just keep making things. And this isn't going to be the last time that we talk to you. And it seems right. And I said, I showed a little bit of Molly's
Molly.
Not Dead. So I'm going to back that up and just let that
Play out.
I'm going to let it play out. And I want to thank everybody for joining us. And you'll see, this is here we go. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy
Thank
this
you.
little snippet.
Thank you.
Joanne, you're the best. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It was a really blast. I wish I want to let us know what you think about these, because my only regret is I've been listening to so many long form things now. I just wish we could do it for 2 hours instead of like an hour.
Instead of an hour.
Or
Yeah.
3 hours. We hope you're all getting something out of it. We are. And we hope that we can all see you at the show really soon.
And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to write us at info@pilobolus.org. I'm sure Raya's going to put it in the chat.
Thanks again. We'll see you next time.